right? And you want to be strategic. You want to start thinking. You want to start planning your funding sequences 3 to 5 moves ahead, just like chess. This is very, very important. Patience is key, right? Patience is very key. You might not be where I'm at, right? In your journey. You might be somewhere, you might be a year behind, 6 months, 12 months, 8 months, 3 months. You don't have the accounts that you have, that I have. So you want to make sure that you be patient. Second thing, you become fundable and you'll never be broke. If you have a great credit profile, you'll never be broke, right? If you lose your job or whatever, you lose a business or whatever the case is, and you're looking to get funding, if you have great credit and you're fundable, in 7 to 10 days, you can get $50,000 to $100,000 just like that, right? Because you have a fundable profile. You show the lenders that you're able to manage that. You're able to make payments on time over a period of time. And most importantly, this is not a sprint. This is a marathon, right? Again, I didn't start with a $40,000 credit card line of credit, right? I started with 500. I worked my way up. So you have to be patient. Again, you have to be strategic. You got to wait your turn because it's not going to happen overnight. Most chess grandmasters know their next 15 to 20 moves, and business and life isn't much different. Most people only know their next moves, while the few know their next 15 to 20 moves. So take time out, write down your next 10 moves. And this, you got to be strategic, right? You have to be strategic. Okay, I'm going to go to this bank. I'm going to go to this bank. They pull Experian. They pull Equifax. They look for this. They look for that. So you want to be strategic in your planning and your execution of these sequences. All right. So the goals are personal credit, then business credit, and then business lines of credit. That is the ultimate goal. You want to go from personal credit to business credit and to business lines of credit. And the reason is because, yes, business credit is great, but business credit is really just business credit cards, right? Business lines of credit is cash in the bank. If I get approved for a $100,000 business line of credit, that's $100,000 cash straight in the bank. With a business credit card, you have to get creative. You have to get creative to liquidate that credit card and turn it into cash. But a business line of credit is straight cash. So it's harder to get. You have to have an LLC, typically 1 to 2 years old, most likely 2 years old, to get that business line of credit. But it's better than a business credit card because you don't have to get fancy and creative to liquidate that credit card. It's just straight cash in the bank, and it's typically lower interest rate as well. All right. So the ideal credit profile is 100% payment history. Very, very important. 100% payment history. No derogatory, no charge-offs, no collections, etc. Credit utilization. A lot of people say below 30%. Some people in the funding space say below 10%. I say 0%. I like to personally be at 0%, right? No more than 3 inquiries in the last 3 months. You don't want to appear to the lenders like you're thirsty. You're actively looking for credit. You're actively seeking credit. That way they can approve you, because lenders like to lend to people who don't actually need the credit. Now, this is important. Minimum 5 primary accounts. Ideally, you want 10. 5 primary accounts, that's a mix of credit cards. That's a mix of installment loans, auto loans, mortgages, personal loans, pledge loans, whatever the case is, or just some sort of installment loans. But you also want to have credit cards, right? You want to have bare minimum 2,500, ideally 10K. That's why I say it's a sprint. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You may not be ready to get that. You may not have the profile. You may have to do a mini round of funding before you go to business credit. So you want to make sure that your profile is set up. And if it requires for you to wait a little bit, 6 to 12 months, a year, whatever the case is, you have to wait, because you won't be able to get the funding on the business side if your profile is not set up. So you want to make sure that you have that. Minimum, honestly, I put 680, but it's turning to 700 minimum, and preferred 740. It puts you in a different tier, tier 1. It's just a higher tier that the banks look at it. And again, it's not so much the credit score, right? It's really your ideal thickness of the profile, right? 10. That's why I say ideally 10 primary accounts. Not authorized users. You want to have 10 primary accounts on that personal side, because that means you're able to manage. The lenders look at you and that you're able to manage that with different lines of credit, installment loans, business lines, credit cards and things like that. So that's why I say ideally 10. 3 C's of business funding: cash flow, collateral, credit. I'm going to engrave that in your head until you guys get it. Cash flow, collateral, credit. I'm going to talk about these shortly. banks warn of lending pullback, fueling recession fear. So it's going to get a lot worse, right? We're currently, I think it's a very small recession, but things are not great right now. The economy is not good, right? Everybody can sense it. So banks are starting to be a little bit more tight with their credit and lending out credit and lending out money. So banks are tightening up. Banks are starting to ask for proof. Lending is changing. This is what I predict in the next couple years, because before it was a lot easier to get funding. But now what I'm noticing, all the data points I'm getting, is that banks are starting to ask for proof, right? What they're looking for is two things. They're looking for a great personal credit report, right? And cash flow. That's why I talk about cash flow collateral credit, because now if you have cash flow, meaning bank statements, typically three months, last 3 months, that's what the banks are looking for. You can get more funding, or you won't get denied, because if you have great credit and you can prove that you have income from that business, you can get more funding because you're more lendable than someone that just has okay credit and they don't have business generating revenue, right? So banks want to mitigate the risk. So they want to make sure who they lend to can be able to pay them back. So you want to make sure you have a tier 1 personal credit, ideally 10 primary accounts. We talked about that. And you want to make sure that you have cash flow. Okay. You want to make sure you got to get away from this is what the trend is going to start going to. The trend is going to start going to, you see how you hear a lot of people say no docs and all this. It's going to start going to docs or low docs, which is 3 months bank statements or some sort of proof that you're generating that income you say you do on those applications, because banks want to mitigate the risk. They don't want to lend to people, especially when times are rough. So I don't think the no doc stuff is going away. I just think there's going to be more of low doc stuff going into the future, especially for like large lines and business lines of credit. So you want to make sure that you start to focus on building an actual business that is generating revenue and cash flow. It doesn't even have to be profit. So this is, a lot of people don't know this. This is just a data point. So banks have an internal rating system based on a 3-month average. Low rating this is a deposit, right? Like how much you have as far as the 3-month average in your bank account. So low rating is 1,000 to 4,000. Mid 4 rating is 4,000 to 7,000. High 4 rating 7,000 and let's call it 10,000. Low 5 10,000 to 39,000. Mid 5, high 5. So this helps a lot. This is like showing that you have a relationship with that bank. You're willing to make deposits into that bank, and you have some sort of revenue generating because you have all this money in the bank, right? They're more likely to lend to you. They're more likely to offer different products to you. Because you've built that relationship, you've left money in that account, you're depositing money, or you let some money in that account, and that way they'll be able to lend to you because you also have that personal credit and you have the cash flow. All right, so no docs, basically just no documentation. Low docs is 3 months bank statements. Sometimes this is more so for like business lines of credit. They want 1-year tax return, right? 1-year tax returns. Full docs is 2-year tax returns, profit and loss statement, personal tax returns. So just be mindful of that. This is just some terminology that you should know if you're in the funding space. So here's some maximum funding hacks that I don't hear a lot of people talk about. So before you actually apply to business credit, when you're trying to transition over to the business credit side, you want to make sure you ask for credit line increases from the personal side, only if it's a soft pull before applying for business credit. Why? Because business credit goes off comparable credit on the personal side. So if you have a $20,000 personal credit card, and you can get that to 25, 30,000 on the personal side, you ask for that credit line increase. It's going to be a soft pull. Then they're more likely to give you a higher limit on the business side because they saw, okay, he has a $30,000 or $20,000 personal credit card. Let's give him 25,000 on the business side. Let's give him 35,000 on the business side, right? Another thing that you can do, you can merge limits. So when you get to the business side, what you can do is reallocate the limits from one card to the next. So those are great. Those are great when you're trying to get one card that has a really high limit. And then another gem is that I don't hear a lot of people talk about is you want to You want to ask for credit line increases after approval, right? So what you want to do is you want to call the reconsideration line every other month, right? So let's say I get approved for a Chase Business credit card, right? And they only approved me for $5,000. I got approved. I'm calling before I activate that card. I am calling Chase and ask them to reconsider my credit limit. You tell them it's not enough to cover my marketing expenses. It's not enough large of a limit. And sometimes, believe it or not, it's a 50-50 chance. You can go from 5K to 15K, even after you got approved. So that's a gem right there. That let's say you get approved for a Chase card, right? Business credit card. It's 5K, right? After you got approved for that, you get it in the mail. Before you activate it, call Chase. Hey, can you guys give me a higher credit limit because I don't feel like 5K is enough for my business. I'm spending a lot on marketing. I'm growing my business. Can you guys get me reconsider it to get a higher approval? Believe it or not, that happens more often than not. That's another gem right there. All right, here are the top banks, and I'm going to go through each data point, right? Chase, American Express are the top banks. I don't care what anybody says, and it's not even close. And I'm going to go through each data point explaining why. Truist, Bank of America, I got Truist twice there, PNC, Navy Federal, and Eline Financial. All right, so American Express, a lot of people don't know this. American Express offers a business line of credit, 1-year-old LLC, very low credit score, minimum 680. You only have to be generating $3,000 in revenue. That's gross. That's not profit. A buddy of mine had deposited 50. So what they do is they use a system called Plaid, which connects to your bank account. And what that does is they're looking for activity deposits into that business checking account. You have to connect it to the business checking account, right? He left 15,000 in that business checking account. He got a $100,000 business line of credit at 8%. That's a gem, because business lines of credit are typically 2 years old. You have to be at least 2 years old, right? So Amex offers a business line of credit up to $250,000, 1-year LLC, minimum $3,000 gross. It doesn't have to be profit. Again, they're looking for cash flow and they're looking for deposits, right? And a minimum credit score of only 680. It's very low limits. They have charge cards. I know a guy who has a charge card, Platinum, 675,000 spent. So charge card, the difference between the charge card and the credit card, Amex uses this thing called spending power, right? And what that is the more you use it paid off, the more you use it paid off, you get more, essentially, you get to use more of that credit. So that's why they say no preset spending limit, right? Because if you're spending 50,000 and you're paying it off in full every month, then they'll start to increase it to 75, 100. So the more you use it and pay it off in full, not like partially, if you have to pay it off in full. Like I had a Platinum, I had like almost 100,000 on the spending power. So you can get these charge cards. Now you have to pay it off in full, right? The benefit is that you get a really high limit, but you still have to pay it off in full. They have really great high limits. They have the best rewards. They have great cards for personal and business. Soft pull for credit line increases, soft pull for approvals if you're already a customer, and you can reallocate the limits. You can go, if you have a Amex business one, you can actually move that to another business one and merge the limits into that. So Amex, top of the line, and so is Chase. And I'm going to talk about that as well. And they also have 2 business credit cards that offer 0% interest. They have hotel cards. Amex is the top of the list. Chase, hands down, the best. It's neck and neck between Chase and American Express. Chase has $150,000 credit limit exposure on the business side. They offer business line. Nobody knows. A lot of people don't know this. They offer business lines of credit, $250,000. You have to have 2-year LLC. And this is from a relationship manager that I have with Chase. This is all data from him. You can do up to $100K with no financials, right? Up to $100K, basically no docs, right? You have to have tier 1 credit though. But they do up to $100K with no docs. They offer $250,000 business line of credit. You have to have 2-year LLC. Great cards, high limits, best rewards. They also now just change it. Soft pulls on credit line increases. You can do the same thing, reallocate limits. Here's another thing that you can do. You got let's say $25,000 Inc. Business Unlimited at 0% interest for 12 months. You get approved. That 12 months offer is running low, right? It's up in like 2 days. You can apply for a new card, right? You can merge that. You can get that limit and merge it over the whole thing to the new card and start over again at 0%. So you got one approved for 25K. The offer is over. The 12 months is over. You lost the 0% interest. You apply for a new card. Let's say you get approved for 10K. You could turn that 10K to 35K at 0% interest for another 12 months. And they have 250K credit limit exposure across all revolving lines, business and personal. So basically, the most you can have, including business credit cards and personal credit cards with Chase, is 250,000. You can have one credit card, the Inc. Business Premier, which is like a charge card, their version of the charge card. You can have one credit card, $100,000 limit, or 125 or 150,000. That's crazy. And again, once you get approved for Chase, before activating, you call the reconsideration line to get it reconsidered for a credit line increases. And also, if you get denied from a Chase, every Chase approval, even on my personal, I got denied. I got it reconsidered and got it approved. So believe it or not, Chase is weird like that. Sometimes they'll just flat out deny you, but if you call the reconsideration line, they'll get you approved. You just tell them you want them to reconsider their application. Navy Federal, a lot of people don't know this. Total credit limit, credit exposure for the business side, and that's without docs. So you could have across all businesses, when you apply for a Navy Federal business credit card, the max that you can have between any card or just one card is 35,000. Anything after that, they're going to ask for documentation. They're going to ask for like tax returns, personal tax returns, business tax returns. They're going to ask for docs. They have business lines of credit up to 50,000. You do need to provide tax returns. Can be a ghost card and does not report to business credit or personal. So the utilization doesn't report. So the people who don't know what a ghost card is, basically, there is a such thing on the personal side. They have utilization, right? On the personal side, they have utilization where if you max out your card, it drops your score. They have the same thing on the business side, right? So if you max it out, this does not report to business credit. So I can run up 35,000 on the Navy Federal, which I have 35,000 across two cards, and that utilization on the business side won't report to the business credit bureaus. So I can still get funding from like other business credit card companies. Bank of America, they're okay as far as the limits. I got several business credit cards with them, but they generally don't really have too much of a high limit as far as the cards. I still use them, but they're pretty good. Business lines of credit up to 25,000, no docs. Both business and personal finance are reviewed for credit worthiness. Personal credit, you need above 700. Score is typically required at least 2 years in business under existing ownership, and you have to have 100,000 or more in annual revenue. Soft pull on credit limit increases. I have a personal credit card at 40,000. I have several business credit cards at 20,000. You can apply for 2 credit cards the same day, 1 inquiry. Typically, they pull TransUnion. Their card, the only reason they're good is because they do offer several business credit cards at 0%. And on the personal side, they have a personal credit card that can go up to 80K. And I'm trying to get mine to 80K on the personal side. PNC. This is a regional bank, right? I'm not sorry. This is not a regional bank. This is all over. This is typically everywhere in the United States. This is not startup friendly, right? The LLC needs to be at least a year old. They have great 0% interest credit cards. You can double dip, meaning you can apply for 2 products the same day with 1 inquiry. So they have business credit cards up to 25,000. It's best to have a relationship before you apply, meaning you have a business bank account or a personal bank account. Up to 100K for business lines of credit, no docs. You can go up to 100K, but it's unlikely you will get that. Just a FYI. They go off at 10% off of gross income. It's stated income. So you can ask for the 100K, but you probably won't get that. They'll probably counter with like 40 or 50, but they do stated income. So that's something to keep in mind. Again, you have to have at least 1 year old for the LLC. Truist up to 25,000, 0% interest credit cards. I think they have 2 of those. They pull Equifax. 2-year LLC for business lines of credit up to $50K. Anything over that is you have to provide documentation. When I say docs, usually bank statements or tax returns. You can double dip. Double dip is you apply for multiple products same day with just that one hard inquiry. Apply in branch. You open a business checking account before applying, and then you can apply for the business credit card or that business line of credit. I'm kind of speeding through this, but this will be recorded and put in a classroom, so for the replay. So Eline Financial, most people don't know this if you're not in the credit world. So when you go to a small bank or regional bank, if you actually look at the fine print, it's going to say underwritten by Eline Financial. They actually do most of the underwriting for most small and local and credit unions. You don't need a relationship with them. It's not relationship based. I'm gonna post all the list of banks that offer 0% interest credit cards, and I'm gonna post also a funding sequence, what you can do to get maximum funding for that. 0% interest credit card offers. They offer a lot of 0% interest and 0% interest on balance transfers. All right. So I'm going to provide a list of all the Eline Financial banks in the community. So look out for that. Regional banks. This is something that is starting to pop up. So there's 3 tiers of banks: national banks, regional banks, and local banks. Okay. The national banks, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase, right? Those are the national. Regionals are like Truist, something that's in a certain region, Citizens Bank. But regional banks, and mostly regional banks, they're starting to put some weight. They're starting to include that you need to have a business credit score for the approvals. And I'm going to make some videos on how to get an 80 paydex score, but you don't necessarily need this if you're not really going too much on regional banks, right? Ultimately, 80 to 90% of the decision is going to be made on your personal credit. So just keep that in mind. But I figured I mentioned this because things are starting to trend this way, where I'm getting data and data points from people saying, "Hey, Toby, they asked her, they wanted to make sure my paydex was 80. I was an 80 paydex, or my Equifax business was this score, or whatever it was, right?" So I just wanted to shed some light on that, but don't be afraid. You still could get a ton of funding from just Chase, American Express, and some other banks that I mentioned before. Another thing that you can do is you can literally just Google your best credit unions, or just search credit unions near me, right? And credit unions are great in this regard, because a lot of the times, if they're not written by Eline Financial, sometimes they do their own underwriting, and it's not a cookie cutter process, right? Chase, American Express, most of those big banks, it's like an algorithm. They check your score, boom, you're approved. This is more manual. So you can get the bag from local credit unions. You just got to do the research. You got to make sure that you're looking through. So to pick the top 5 near you, check out the website, see what they offer, see if they offer business lines of credit, small business loans, business credit cards. Then you can just call to ask more information. Just ask them, what are the requirements? What's the minimum credit score? Hey, what bureau do you pull from? It's okay to ask these questions, bank representative, and then you can go in there and confirm and actually, just confirm and speak with a relationship manager or a business banker in the bank personally. All right. So here's another thing. So depending on your strategy, right? And we're going to talk about this. It's going to be in the next class, the next 2 classes, the class, I think the 17th or the 18th, about SOPROP. A lot of people don't know this, right? So depending on your strategy or your situation, you might not need to get an LLC. So it literally all depends. And this is coming from someone who has 7 LLCs, right? You can literally SOPROP. A SOPROP is just you're the entity. You use your personal, your social security number, and you're operating the business as a sole proprietor. So you can literally SOPROP your way. I have a SOPROP, and I got business credit cards from that 4 or 5 years ago. You can SOPROP your way to 100K plus in business funding, right? And the benefit is you can save on fees, right? Because if you have I have 7 LLCs, I'm paying business addresses and all this extra stuff, right? And LLCs can be costly, a couple $100 a year, and you got to do it and be in compliance every year. So you can save a ton of money on fees, and just sole prop your way. So if you have a legitimate business, I would recommend getting an LLC. If you don't, and you have like side hustles and it's not necessarily generating a ton of revenue, I would actually go the sole prop way, because you can get a Chase card, you can get American Express, you can get Bank of America. These are cards that I got. You can get Eline Financial, sole prop. I think Navy Federal, they allow sole prop. Some banks don't allow sole prop proprietors. They only want LLCs. So those are the pros. Now the cons is if you actually have a business and you're sole prop and you're actually operating as a sole prop, you run a risk of like getting your stuff taken. Like you could be sued and you're not really covered. LLC covers you in a lot of different ways. And then you could also get better benefits as tax benefits with LLC if you're operating as an S Corp. I'm not a tax consultant or anything like that. I'm just telling you some of the benefits. And then also, you get more funding with LLCs if you think long term, because you can get a business line of credit. With a sole prop, I don't believe you can get a business line of credit. Your LLC has to be at least 2 years old with an LLC. A sole prop, you won't be able to utilize business lines of credit, which again are are the best out of everything, because it's straight cash in the bank. But I just wanted to mention that. So really depending on your strategy, what you're trying to do, if you don't have a current business that's actually generating revenue and it's just like side hustle money, you could go the sole prop way, and then when you're ready, then transition that to an LLC, because you can save some money on the fees. Another thing you guys can do, LLC stacking. That's the name I created. You can create an LLC, right? 123 Main Street. You get funded for that. And from that same bank, you already know all the data points. You got approved from that bank. You already know what your score was, what your utilization was, what your age was. You already know all the data points. You got approved. You buy another LLC. You run the same play back to that same bank. And then you age the LLCs to get business lines of credit. It comes with a lot more costs and management, right? And then the taxes and all that. So that's something you want to keep in mind. So again, it really all depends on your strategies. And again, this is coming from someone who has 7 LLCs. Most of them are over 2 years old, except one, right? So you have to be strategic. I talk a lot about being strategic, being patient, planning out your sequences, having a game plan of what you want to do. Okay, I plan to get funding. Okay, how much? Which banks I'm gonna go to? How I'm gonna approach this? So you have to be strategic in that regard. Business lines of credit, typically they start at 25,000. The approvals 25 to 50K, straight cash in the bank. Sometimes up to 100K, no docs, but most of the time you can get up to 100K up to 100K. Some provide docs, some don't. There's some offers like Chase. If you have docs, you can get up to 250K. So theoretically, right, you can go American Express up to 250K. If you got, they're gonna look at your bank activity. If you got good cash flow, boom, that's 250 right there. You go to Chase, you got docs, that's a $500,000 straight cash in the bank. And they have better interest rates than credit cards, unless you're doing a credit card that's 0% interest. So that's something you got to consider. And that's just 2 banks. Those are just major banks. You got regional banks, Truist, PNC. If you got docs, you could do Navy Federal. You got a ton of banks that you can get business lines of credit if you have the docs and the LLC age to prove that. So what you need, don't lose focus on this. What you need to focus on, as I said in the beginning, have a great personal credit and start focusing on generating revenue, so generating cash flow, because that way you get higher approval amounts, you get higher likelihood that you're going to get approved for and not denied. And you could always go to different banks and different institutions locally, regionally, and nationally, because you have the credit and you have the cash flow. You have the credit and you have a business that's generating revenue, and you're able to prove to the bank that you're able to manage this debt.